Hi, this is HUMA 1010, week 8, last week. I'm your professor, John Silbert, and this is the art of being human. This last week, we look at the 20th century in particular, and we look at artists and musicians that have a very American flair. The abstract expressionists, though, of course, were worldwide. But abstract expressionism is something that really blossomed here in the United States, and there were groups of folk who joined together, folks like Jackson Pollock, Willem de Kooning, Franz Klein, each one, and some others. Obviously, Mark Rothko is in that group, that is to say, of abstract expressionism, to make an impact. And in many ways, the art world shifted from the continent to America, and particularly places like New York City. Anyway, we're going to look at the abstract expressionists. We're also going to look at pop art, and I have some clips there for you that speak to that through Andy Warhol on the one hand, and we know Andy Warhol here because of the Andy Warhol Museum on the north side of Pittsburgh, but also Klaus Oldenburg, who is a sculptor of gargantuan proportions. There's a real interesting piece there, a very short clip from the Philadelphia Community College. They're talking about Klaus Oldenburg and pop art. The other thing we're going to look at is American roots music. I give you a metaphor, and that's the first piece that you'll see when you open up that folder. That is a map of the eastern United States river system, and the idea that the Mississippi River, if you go to its source, there was a debate one time that one of the outdoor writers here in Pittsburgh offered to say, what is the source of the Mississippi River? Traditionally, of course, it is somewhere up in central northern Minnesota. But at a critical juncture, if you trace it back down, if you were to start at the Mississippi at its mouth and work its way back river upstream, you come to forks in the river, and typically you would take the fork that has the greatest water flow. Well, I guess when you get to Paducah, Kentucky, you have the choice of going to the left and north, which is the one that would take you ultimately to Minnesota, or you can take the right fork, which will take you east, which leads, of course, east and north, which leads, of course, to ultimately to Pittsburgh, because that was the Ohio River. And as you come into Pittsburgh, you would take the Allegheny, and then as you go up the Allegheny, you would take the Clarion, and from the Clarion, so on and so forth. I think it's something like the Cinemahoning or First Fork Cinemahoning. The point is that it leads eventually to a little babbling brook in an otherwise obscure farm in Potter County, PA, north central Pennsylvania. And so one of the fellows in the Post-Gazette or Pittsburgh Press, back when there was a Pittsburgh Press, was suggesting that the source of the Mississippi River was in fact in northern Potter County, Pennsylvania. Well, regardless, the metaphor that I want to use for American roots music is that it is a river that all along its way is feeding and is fed by waters. You know, a river system. Think of the mighty Mississippi. Think of our own rivers. If you come down the Allegheny, you come into that big basin in front of the Golden Triangle, and there the Ohio moves on out from there. All along the way, being fed by tributary streams, but also giving life then through its flow into fertile farm pastures and dropping its nutrients different places. It's this amazing biosphere that just keeps giving and taking all along the way. It's a really good metaphor for American roots music. And if we think of the primary streams that form, that is the Native American music and culture, African American music, and especially that idea of call and response that begins really in many ways not only in the African continent, but also becomes part of the songs of spirituals work songs, even prison songs, the kinds of songs that enabled people to take one more step. And there was typically a call and response. And you'll see some very good examples of that in the video pieces for this week. And then finally, the European American tradition. And I'm focusing on one particular tradition. Quite frankly, it's part of my tradition, Scots-Irish. And I guess as people say it, I'm a Micmac. I have Irish in me, McJunkin, or Jenkins, which is actually a Welsh name, but McJunkin, which is the Irish, and McMurray, which is Scottish. And anyway, I focus on the Scots-Irish and their impact, especially as they moved from migration from Ireland, from Scotland to Ireland, from Ireland to Pennsylvania, and then from Pennsylvania south into the hills of Appalachia, the mountains of Appalachia, and places like Virginia and Tennessee and North and South Carolina. And so as an example of, as one of the European families that gave their legacy and heritage to what ultimately becomes the music of America. So those three particular streams are what our focus is musically this week, the American roots music experience. And then finally, I wanted to leave you with three artists, that is to say, three people in the humanities that made a tremendous impact in the 20th century. They practically lived, their bracket of time living is pretty much the 20th century. They are Martha Graham, the dancer, choreographer, who was really one of the great dance choreographers, certainly the most impactful in the 20th century, without question. Aaron Copland, with whom she collaborated for probably her most important work, a work entitled Appalachian Spring, also known as Ballet for Martha. Aaron Copland was the composer of the music that he based on an old Shaker hymn called Simple Gifts. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. Dance then wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he, and I'll lead you all wherever you may be. For I am the Lord of the dance, said he. That's the old Shaker hymn that he used as a foundation, that folk tune, as a foundation for his symphony, Appalachian Spring, or Ballet for Martha, that she then choreographed for her own purposes. I put them up on a PowerPoint, and there are clips that will lead you to those particular dances. Actually, WQED-TV Pittsburgh, back in 1959, actually had Martha Graham dancing that role of the pioneer woman in that particular ballet. And they taped it, filmed it, and it's now on YouTube, of course. And it's a delight. It's a wonderful piece. Now, I have it embedded in the PowerPoint, but just in case, for whatever reason, the embed doesn't work, and you may need to open the PowerPoint and enable editing at the very top, and then once you actually load the PowerPoint to make it the show, then if there's a window that pops up seeking permission because there's outside content, go ahead and answer it yes, allow it, and hopefully it'll just work right from within the PowerPoint. If it doesn't, I have loaded them separately as YouTube clips independently underneath the PowerPoint. They're worth watching. They're really worth watching. They're wonderful. And the other artists, there's two, Martha Graham, Aaron Copland, and the third is my favorite artist, the painter Andrew Wyeth. Andrew Wyeth was the son of a great illustrator, Newell Converse Wyeth, N.C. Wyeth. He was an illustrator of children's books. And I have actually one of his children's books. It's a book about Robin Hood, and N.C. Wyeth did all the illustrations. They're wonderful. So his son, Andrew, came to his painting honestly, had good gene pool. He also gave birth to a son, or I should say his wife did, Betsy James Wyeth, but to a son, James. And their family are based in Chadsford, Pennsylvania. A place called the Brandywine River Museum is now really the central point of their art. It's almost like they're a colony of artists. Wonderful artist whose work is truly illuminating. There is something there in Andrew Wyeth's work for me that truly moves me aesthetically. And we started way back in week 1 about aesthetic enjoyment. Wyeth is one of those who does that for me on a pretty much every canvas basis. So I share him with you as well. There's some wonderful things that are compiled here. And there's some touch points, obviously, with the text you're reading in chapter 13 of the book. This week, I'm going to ask you to look back over your shoulder in the discussion forum. Not so much a discussion forum as it is your reflections on our time together. And I will give you a question or two to answer in the discussion area. Please do so. You'll be taking a final exam. It will be similar to your midterm, except that there may be some images accompanying the exam that you will have to match up or identify. Haven't quite figured that out yet, and I'll be working with the Blackboard folks about how I might do that. But the final exam will be there, and also your music event planning activity is due this week. I would like the event planning activity by Friday. I would like you to take the exam. I believe I have that scheduled, or will have it scheduled. I would like you to have that completed by Saturday or so. I need time to turn all of it around and submit grades. I believe the grades are due by Monday morning at 9 a.m., even for you folks that are online. And while I have students face-to-face that I am giving exams to this week, you folks, we will continue to be in this virtual classroom. So we have some things to do. There's some really wonderful, wonderful pieces up here. I'm thinking about in the music section, especially in the American Roots music section. Look at the Native American clips that I have there. Joanne Shenandoah is a phenomenal musician, has played for literally for presidents and popes, the Dalai Lama, a Grammy Award-winning Native American artist. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. She and her daughter Leah sing a beautiful song, but also some other things, including a couple of young Native Americans who are very interested in maintaining their heritage, their culture. I think they're both either Arapaho or Cheyenne Indians. One's name is Butchie Eastman. The other is Antoine Edwards. And then Mikey Sue, I guess, is the third guy. And they each, in their own way, are carrying forward the tradition. They start with a very basic Native American tune called the Round Song, from which they then write their own lyrics and things. It's really pretty cool stuff. I think it's always gratifying when a tradition that is part of a person is never let go, but is in fact embraced. And you've got some folks there that embrace their traditions moving forward. And in an increasingly complex world, increasingly in a virtual world like you and I are right now, as I stare into my webcam, nevertheless, it is good for us to be in touch with the things that truly make us human. And whether that is a cultural heritage or a song shared orally, or whether it is some other way we have creatively expressed ourselves, all of it contributes to our capacity to be more human with one another. And we desperately need the wonder of human engagement and interaction, especially as it blesses and enhances us with and among each other. So anyway, as we finish up this week and as we finish the course, I wish you well. especially as you get ready to take the final and all that stuff. But as you experience the resources that I've put together, with every hope that it will help you in your own art of being human. Take care. Have a good week.